The ruins of Colony 7 still smoldered when Orla found them. She'd been scavenging through the debris field, twisted, metal and shattered habitation pods scattered across the red Martian soil when she heard the sound. Not quite a whimper, not quite a growl. Something desperate and alien that made her 12-year-old heart clench despite 3 years of learning to ignore such things. Orphans on the frontier colonies couldn't afford sentiment. Sentiment got you killed. But Orla had never been good at following that rule. She found them huddled beneath the skeletal remains of a cargo transport, 2 creatures no larger than terrier dogs. Their scales shimmered like oil on water, iridescent purples and deep crimsons that seemed to shift with each labored breath. Membranous wings lay crumpled against their sides, torn and bloody. Their eyes, 6 on each elongated head, fixed on her with an intelligence that froze her in place. The Krivath. Dragonkind. Humanity's most fearsome enemy in the expansion wars. Orla should have run. Should have reported their location to whatever Earth Defense Force soldiers still patrolled the sector. Instead, she stared at their distended bellies, saw the way their scaled skin pulled tight over visible ribs, and thought of her own gnawing hunger. "You're just babies," she whispered. The smaller one, its scales more purple than red, let out a pitiful trill. The sound bypassed every survival instinct Orla had developed and struck something deeper, something fundamentally human that couldn't ignore suffering. She pulled the nutrient bar from her pocket. Her only meal for the day, possibly for the next 2 days, depending on what the scavenger markets offered. Lewis would call her an idiot. Her fellow orphan and closest thing to family always said her empathy would get her killed. He was probably right. Orla broke the bar in half, then quarters. She extended one piece toward the purple-scaled cub. 6 eyes widened. A forked tongue tasted the air. Then, with surprising gentleness for a creature bred for warfare, tiny jaws accepted the offering. The second cub, larger, more crimson, watched its sibling eat before turning its gaze back to Orla. Pride and hunger warred in those alien eyes. She'd seen that look in the mirror often enough. "It's okay," she murmured, offering another piece. No shame in accepting help. By the time Lewis found her an hour later, she'd given both cubs the entire nutrient bar and was attempting to splint the purple one's damaged wing with scrap metal and torn fabric. Orla, what the absolute hell? Lewis froze mid-sentence, his dark eyes going wide. At 14, he'd survived longer than most orphans by being smart, cautious, and thoroughly unsentimental. "Those are Krivath. They're babies, they're weapons. Their parents probably led the raid that killed—" He stopped, but they both knew what he'd been about to say. The raid that killed the last of Colony 7's adult population. The raid that made them orphans. "Look at them, Lewis." Orla's voice cracked. "Really look, he did." She watched his jaw tighten as he took in their injuries, their starvation, the way they trembled despite their attempts at dignity. "We can't keep them," he said finally, but his voice had lost its edge. "I know." But she returned the next day, and the day after, each time bringing whatever scraps she could spare or steal. Lewis complained but always helped, his clever hands better at treating their wounds, his scavenging skills ensuring they had enough food for all of them. The cubs grew stronger. The purple one, Orla called her Shimmer, became bold, playful even, chirping excitedly whenever she approached. The crimson one, Ember, Lewis named him, remained proud but developed a habit of pressing his scaled head against Orla's palm in silent gratitude. On the 7th day, the sky darkened. Orla looked up from the makeshift shelter they'd built for the cubs and felt her blood freeze. Ships, dozens of them. Krivath biovessels, organic and terrible, blotting out the sun. "Run!" Lewis grabbed her arm, but Orla couldn't move. The ships descended with impossible grace, landing in a circle around the ruins. Hatches opened like petals, and they emerged. Adult Krivath, massive and magnificent, their scales gleaming like gemstones, their wings spanning 10 meters or more. An army. A slaughter waiting to happen. Shimmer and Ember burst from the shelter, trilling with excitement, racing toward the nearest adults. Orla and Lewis should have run. Instead, they watched as the cubs chittered and sang, as scaled heads bent low to listen. Watched as 6-eyed gazes turned toward them. 2 human children standing small and defenseless before a dragon army. The largest Krivath approached, each step making the ground tremble. Its scales held every color imaginable, ancient and scarred from countless battles. When it spoke, the translation device in Orla's salvage jacket crackled to life. "You are the ones." The voice resonated like distant thunder. "You fed our lost younglings, healed them, protected them when their own war clan failed." "They were starving," Orla said simply, surprised her voice didn't shake. "Yes." The great head lowered until one massive eye was level with her face. "Our forward strike vessel was destroyed. We believed all aboard perished. For 7 days we searched, and for 7 days these younglings survived because of your kindness." "We didn't do anything special," Lewis muttered. "It just what anyone should do." A sound rippled through the gathered Krivath, a deep, resonant thrumming that Orla slowly realized was laughter. "What anyone should do," the elder repeated. "Child of Earth, your species fights us for territory, for resources, for supremacy. In 3 years of war, not once has a human shown mercy to Krivath young. Yet you, with nothing, gave everything." Shimmer bounded back to Orla, wrapping her serpentine body around the girl's legs. Ember did the same to Lewis. "The younglings have chosen," another Krivath said, its voice softer, almost gentle. "By our oldest laws, they may claim kinright." The elder's eyes whirled with colors Orla had no names for. "Orla of the dead colony, Lewis of the fallen house, you are orphans of war, as these younglings would have been orphans. But you need not remain so." Its massive head turned, addressing the assembled army. "I invoke the right of adoption. Who stands witness?" As one, dozens of voices thundered. "We stand witness!" The elder turned back to them. "We cannot undo the war between our kinds, cannot restore what you have lost. But we offer this. Join our clan. Be our younglings as Shimmer and Ember are now yours. Learn our ways as we learn yours. Perhaps in time, 2 orphaned humans and 2 saved cubs might become the bridge that ends this senseless conflict." Orla looked at Lewis, saw her own shock, fear, and desperate hope reflected in his eyes. They had nothing left on Earth, no family, no future, no home, just endless survival in the ruins. She knelt, placing a hand on Shimmer's scaled head. Lewis did the same with Ember. "Yes," Orla whispered. "Hell yes," Lewis added, managing a shaky grin. The Krivath army erupted in thunderous approval, their combined voices shaking the Martian sky. And as the massive being surrounded them, not as conquerors but as family, Orla understood something profound. Humanity's greatest weapon had never been their technology or their tenacity. It was their stubborn, foolish, wonderful refusal to let compassion die, even in the face of war. Sometimes all it took to change the universe was one orphan girl with a kind heart and a shared meal.